Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Weekly Crop, and this week, congratulations are in order because I almost made it 6 months without breaking something. What did I break this time? Stay tuned to find out. This week is a 2-for-1 week where we're going to be covering two brand new products here at Vistek, and they are very exciting separately on their own, but they're also even more exciting together, almost like they're made for each other in some respect. And they are the ZCam E2, it's a 4K micro four thirds camera, and as well as the brand new Weebil-S, which is an update to their Weebil Lab. So first we're going to talk about the ZCam. If you're not familiar, we're going to be doing a full review, and this video is not a review by any means because there's so much involved with these cameras, and it's not just this micro four thirds version. They're also coming out with a Super 35 and a full frame versions that do both 6K and astoundingly 8K. And so when those cameras come in, we're going to be doing a very thorough review of all the cameras and looking at all the situations where you'd want one over the other. But for now, I just want to introduce you to this camera if you're not familiar with it. So this camera has been out for, I want to say, about a year in development, and some people have gotten some early versions of it, and they've been slowly developing it with users using it over time. But now it's a very complete unit, and it works incredibly well. It gives you a really great image, and that's the most astounding thing is for $2,700 Canadian, you get an image that is indiscernible as far as I can see from a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. And there's a lot of tests online already comparing these two cameras. Its strength over the Blackmagic is its ability to do other codecs other than ProRes or RAW. So it does both ProRes and all the flavors of ProRes and RAW, but it also does H.264 and H.265. So if you want some of those lighter codecs, you want to save some drive space or for whatever reason, then you've got access to those codecs, which you don't with Blackmagic. And that's always been a point of contention with me with the Blackmagic cameras. It also has an amazing form factor. I think you can immediately see this works way better on a gimbal than any Blackmagic pocket camera because of that weird width of those cameras. So this is a really amazing camera in terms of its compactness. Now, for that compactness and its design, you're going to give up a few things, of course. You notice there's no screen on this. So if you don't have a monitor or a mobile device, it's kind of hard to use the camera. There is a little interface screen for the menu, and it does show you a tiny little image, but by no means can you actually shoot with that little image. And that's why this device is really intended for use with mobile device integration. So it has a Wi-Fi signal or Bluetooth, which will send it directly to your phone. If you don't want to go through Wi-Fi, then you can hardwire it into the camera itself. And the addition to this camera as well is there's a lot of other ports on the back that will allow you access to basically some streaming devices. So COM there and a DSL or LAN port. And that's going to give you an opportunity to multicam. And this is a company that have traditionally been very strong in the VR space, and that's where these cameras sort of have migrated from. And so they've really designed these cameras not just for the cinema world, but they've designed them as well for the multicam world. And that's why you're having a lot of these strange connections on the back that we don't typically see from cinema cameras, at least in this price range. Some people have joked that the COM port is like where you can hook up your printer effectively. But think about these cameras as an additional strength of being able to multicam very well and multi-switch within a web-based or even a broadcast environment. So there's a lot of opportunities with this camera that we're going to unfold and unpack as the weeks and months come. Very excited to have the ZCams in our store. Now, it pairs incredibly well with the Weebil-S because right off the top, you can kind of tell that the Weebil-S looks super, super similar to the Weebil Lab, except for the fact that there's a little bit more clearance here from the back of the camera. And that also goes in tandem with just a lot stronger motors. I used the Weebil Lab on a couple things, and what I did notice is that it was easy to overload it. Just with an A7 III, I easily overloaded it where the gimbal just kept failing on me because I was used to using my A7 III with like the Ronin S or the Crane 2, which can handle a heavier load. And it's not that the A7 III was heavy or even the lenses that I was using, but I also like to use plate ND and not variable sort of like little screw-on ND. And the weight of those plates really overloaded the whole system. And I would constantly be using the lab and it would just shut down, or through a move it would just kind of kink on a move because it couldn't handle the smoothness because the whole package was too large. So they've really addressed this with this Weebil-S update. They've really tried to give you the strength of, say, like a Ronin S, but in the Weebil form factor that everybody really loved and they were acclaimed for. The fact that you can hold it like this or simply unscrew the bottom here, the 1/4 20, and place it up top here. and you have an ability to hold the gimbal in a way that no other gimbal can be held. But this is really the kick here, is that the clearance we've never seen before with the Weebils. So typically it was so close that you would oftentimes, as you're pushing that camera back and balancing it, it would hit the eyepiece. And I know with my A7 III, I actually had to remove the little eyepiece because it was sort of nicking it. It was like the tolerance was like a millimeter or two. So they've really increased the distance there, which makes it just so much more usable. And the motors are a lot stronger, which means that now I could probably put my A7 III on here with my NDs and have zero problems whatsoever. So this is an amazing update. Another really great part of the update here as well is that in terms of just getting the camera on and off, if you need to just move quick and like get your camera on and off a gimbal for whatever reason, different shooting environments or different situations, that in the past, I'm just gonna have to turn it off because it is on right now. There we go, I'm gonna turn this thing off. Okay, that is not turning it off because I'm not pressing the power button. There we go. Okay, you're turned off. It's just a very sort of quick release, and that comes to the front here. So I'm just gonna unscrew this, and it just immediately pops off. And you're not gonna have to rebalance because as soon as I want to place it back in, if I can do this correct, yeah, bam. And it's immediately balanced. So you can just tighten it there to make sure that it's not going to slip or pop out on you. Here we go. So that's a really another really great advantage with this is just getting the camera on and off a lot quicker. So the question is, what did I break? Well, what I broke was this little Noga arm that I've got attached to my cell phone holder here. I'm just going to unscrew it here so you can see. Is my sort of one complaint with the device is you've got your accessory quarter 20 here. And the good news is we've managed to fix it, which is fantastic. But I had the quarter 20 Noga arm just like this installed. And what I noticed is that when it was installed, the gimbal would not turn on. And so then I was like, well, that's strange. It was turning on before. And so then I removed this and I was like, well, that's weird that it turns on once I remove this. And so then I put it back in. And it wouldn't turn on, and I was like, okay, that's weird. Something's clearly happening here. And as I was sort of turning this and removing it again, the whole piece just fell off. And the reason that happened is because this is where the battery compartment is, and there's no steel reinforcement, and there's no barrier between the quarter 20 and the batteries. And if your quarter 20 screw is too long, it's going to push on those batteries and remove the connection that was causing the camera or the gimbal to not turn on. But in addition, just the strength of it pushing on the battery and pushing out actually just ripped the whole thing out with all the screws. I managed to save the screws and then place it back in. So my only mention here is it's a word of caution that you can still use Noga arms. Do not place a heavy monitor. It's really ideally designed for your mobile phone and nothing like a 5-inch monitor, which is actually what I had on it. But also to make sure that the length of your quarter 20 is not, super long. Be aware that the battery is right behind there. So try to keep your quarter 20 within a couple, like 2 to 3 millimeters so that it's not abutting against the battery. So that's just like my little word of caution. But otherwise, I was super happy with the way the gimbal worked, and I think it's going to be a huge success. So before we wrap it up, just a couple other really great things about the gimbal. Number one is that they have a Wi-Fi transmitter that will transmit to your smartphone. Works really, really well. Super, super cool. And if you don't want to transmit to your smartphone, but rather a monitor, they're going to be coming out with a receiver as well. So it'll transmit to whatever device you want, whether it's an on-set monitor, a small monitor, director's monitor, or your smartphone or your tablet device. The other thing as well to keep in mind is that in terms of the app integration, you've always been able to control sort of the path and motion of the gimbal motors with sort of a little toggle on an app. And that's generally across the board with most gimbals. But what they've added now is this sort of mimic type feature that you see in the larger gimbals, but that operates off of a smartphone. So it uses the gyro within your smartphone, and you can sort of tilt and pan and roll just by manipulating your gimbal. So think of it in this way, that if you're a two-man team, this is a really exciting thing where you can have one person operating the gimbal and another person actually controlling where the camera is going, and allows for much more cinematic opportunities and much more controlled situations. So what they've done is they've taken the best of the success of the Weebil Lab, and they have made it beefier and stronger like some of their competitors' products to give you the best of all those worlds. So really, really exciting time in terms of what this gimbal can do, and we're really excited to have it here. It sells for about $490 Canadian. So again, the price of these gimbals have come down so much. When I bought my first gimbal, it was $1,000 Canadian, and it did a whole lot less than what this thing does. So it's a really exciting time to marry two products like this together. Yeah, super happy with it. If you want more information on this, please give us a call or visit any one of our stores here in Canada, or visit us online at vistek.ca, where all the information on all these products will be living there, and they already are living there. So until then, go out there, have some fun, and happy shooting.